Bob, tell us a little bit about your own journey. Start with the challenges, maybe, if you like.
So I'll tell you a bit of a story, right? So I woke up one morning and didn't know where I was, right? So it's like me eyes are like heavy, head is banging, and I was like, what's going on? Where am I? And I'm like looking around, like the walls are white, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what is going on here, right?
Yeah.
And I could feel like my face is burning, and I was like, slowly, I'm trying to like, what is going on here? What is going on here? And I look and I see like, so I'm in a cell, yeah? Like absolutely no recollection of how I got there. So I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to remember. And so I'm lying on the floor and I start getting these flashbacks, right? And
Wow.
I remember I was in my car, and then I remember I had a gun on me. And I'm like, oh, geez, what is going on here? What's going on here? I still have my jacket on. Now, I don't know if you've never been arrested, right? Everything is usually stripped off you.
Away,
You're
yeah.
serious, right? I have no trousers on. I have my jacket on, and I have my car keys in my pocket. And now, like I said, so you usually get serious, right? So
In the cell, you had your car
I have my
keys.
car keys in my
That's
pocket.
mad.
I'm like, right, hell, what is going on here? And like I said, my face is burning. So I jump up and I throw the keys down the toilet and I start banging on the door. So the guard comes and she takes down the hatch. And I says, what's going on? What am I doing here? And she just looks at me and she starts laughing, yeah? And she's like, you don't remember? And I says, no, what did I do? And she's like, you were a handful last night. And I says, yeah, I says, I'm about to go on the toilet. I says, flush that toilet. I was thinking, like, get rid of them keys, right? Because I knew I had the gun and I knew I was in the car. That was all I could remember. Anyway, so I ended up, did you ever see the show Catchphrase?
Yeah.
So it's like, right, so that was like the day in the Garda station, right? So it's like, do you know, like you get a piece and like slowly you start to put the picture together.
Yeah, it's like the final answer, a catchphrase, the
100%.
Yeah.
So at the start, I have like this one little piece in the corner, which is like the keys and the gun, right? And then so I was being taken out for interviews, and as they were asking me questions, slowly it's like things are starting to come back to me. And so I slowly started putting the pieces together. And in the end, I ended up being charged and I was sent to prison, right? So just to explain what happened, so the night before, I was supposed to go and do a robbery, and I was met a couple of friends and we were supposed to go off and do something. And it turned out, so I was going to the doctor and they started prescribing me Xanax because I had been smoking crack, right? And I was trying to like sort of stop that. And so obviously I wasn't drinking. And we were supposed to do a robbery. We're all sitting there and we're waiting for this to happen. And my friend says, oh, do you want a bottle? And I says, no. So I'm sitting there and then they start drinking. This is dragging on. Eventually my mate comes over with a bottle of vodka and says, take a glass. And I says, right, go on, I'll take one glass of vodka.
Excellent, that was Annex.
Right, glass of vodka, bottle. And then they go, oh, this is not happening tonight. He goes, look, we'll leave this off and we'll come back next week. And now I'm saying, no, like I'm half lit, right? The girl I was with, she's in the gaff with me, young fella. I might have been absolutely manic, right? So I can't go back there. So I was like, what am I going to do? So I rang for an after hours bottle of vodka, flew down, got that, and I literally I was like completely like suicidal at this time, right? Me mind was like completely gone. So I remember I got a 2 litre of 7-Up, poured half out, poured the other half the vodka in, and I was just down in it. And I was just so angry, right? And I was ringing people and I was just like abusing them, you know, people that I knew a long time. And I was done, you know, I was done with life. And this might be really bad for people to hear that have had someone die in a car crash, right? So apologies. But like I said, I was in a really bad headspace. But anyway, so I took my seatbelt off and I started going like foot to the floor through red lights, hoping someone would hit me. And nobody hit me. I ended up coming in. I was been ringing my friend, who was like, this is a childhood best friend, yeah. I was ringing him and I was like saying, like, basically like making threats against him, you know. And he was like, what is going on? Like, what are you talking about?
Makes sense.
So I flew in, came into the estate, and there was someone getting out of a taxi. I lifted the handbrake and I almost hit them. And it turned out there was a house party. So a lot of people came out. And there was a fella came out who I had stabbed his brother, right? And he says, oh, what's your story? And he says something to me. And he didn't know I have a gun in the car. So I leaned in, took the gun, and so I'm running around the road. He's like ducking, and all the women, all the DLs on the road, like scumbag. And so I ended up, there's a big commotion. I went around the corner, threw a little lane to me ma's, and ended up, I started letting shots off my ma's front garden. My dad came out, and I held my dad. I told me dad to come out, and I started shooting in the air, and I says, like, I was like, I'm sick of life. I said, you're going to kill me. And he's like, I'm not going to kill you. I had the gun to my neck. It was a sawn off. It was about that length. So I had the gun to my neck. And I says, you kill me or I'm killing you. And my dad was like, I'm not killing you. So I was like, I let another shot off in the air. I says, I'm telling you now, I'm not joking. I says, look, I'm going to kill you. I said, he was pleading with me. I was like on the ground. I was crying. And I was just like, I was pleading with him. Like I was saying, just do it. Like, please, I can't do this anymore. And what happened was then a car came flying onto the road, blue lights, and new police, right? So I ran through the gun and I just ran at them and started trying to fight them. And so I ran at them. It turned out they were armed guards. Lucky, like they had got a report of shots fired. Lucky they didn't draw their arms. I ran at them. I started trying to fight them. And so that was it. Then I was nicked. Pepper spray. That was when my face was burning. When I woke up, brought to the Garda station, and then woke up the next morning and didn't even know any of that had happened.
Jesus, that's some story, Bob. To say the least. Do you know what's really challenging here for people to hear that story, right? I've spent time with you. We've had the best time even today. I've known you from the past. Lynn Rowan put me in touch with you. I know you're a really good person. And for people that have heard that story, they might be conflicted around how can someone do that? How do you get to that space? What you talked about anger, mental health, suicide, and then the violence sort of came from that. What brought you to that space? We come from the same area as well in Blanchardstown, so I can see all of this happening, and I know the area where it happened in. Like,
yeah. So to go back, right? So to explain the sort of the journey into that. So I grew up a very like shy and insecure child, right?
yeah,
There was like some stuff going on in the house. Like there was how I often describe my sort of progression to that point is like there's an analogy of like the boiling frog. I don't know if you ever heard of it. So it's like if you throw a frog into a pot, if you throw a frog into a pot of boiling water, he'll jump out.
yeah.
If you put a frog into a pot of cold water and slowly heat it, he doesn't realise he's boiling, right? So it's like I grew up in a home where there was experiences of violence, right? Which I think is like very common, right? But the thing is that what's important here is that what that meant to me is like, so out of the violence that I experienced in the house, it wasn't actually the things that happened to me that really hurt me. It was the experience of violence happening to other people. And what that said to me, or what I told myself about them experiences, is that I was weak, that I should have been able to protect them people, right?
Yeah.
So that was like the start of like the negative self-beliefs, right? And then you come on to into the area. So I remember like one of my first experiences of like extreme violence. I didn't actually see this happening, but I was walking to school. I would have been in maybe first class, and I remember there was a man at the top of the road. He was had to be murdered, right? And I was like the Garda tape, and I was there, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, do you know, like this was the stuff that happens on telly, like, you know, this wasn't the stuff that happens like on the street, you know.
Yeah. Is this the conversation? The same person? Yeah.
So I seen this, and then look, my ma said all the things that you say to a child. She's like, oh, that's terrible, it shouldn't have happened. But I remember like after a few days, like the Garda tape came down, and everything just went back to normal. And I was like, how was everybody acting like that didn't just happen?
Yeah.
You know? And I remember really being struck by that. And then, so this is, I have like the negative self-beliefs about being weak. Then the experiences of violence like that start happening. At the same time, I was bullied a lot. My nickname from all the older lads in the area was Outcast. Yeah, so they pointed like I didn't look like me brothers, you know, and I was like, so I felt really different. I felt that sense of a child. I remember being young in school and thinking that I was an alien.
Didn't belong.
I didn't belong. I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere, you know. I didn't feel like that. I didn't like really being at home, you know. So, and then I didn't really feel like I always struggled to have a stable group of friends, you know. So then the experiences of bullying, my mum made me move school when I was in second class. And I remember making a really conscious decision that I wasn't going to let anybody see my weakness anymore. And it's not the negative belief remained. I thought I was weak, but I had to hide it at all costs, right? So I remember I started trying to like make everyone think I was the tough guy, you know, and I started like outwardly expressing a really different persona than who I actually am, because who I actually am, I'm a really like sensitive person, you know, and I look like now that I know that, you know, but then they weren't things that were beneficial, you know. Like you learn from a young age, and I know we talked about this, that like it's like violence becomes almost like a form of currency, you know. So it's like it's this thing that I can trade for respect, you know. It's like people can pick on me, but if they know that I am willing to fight, well then they don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm able to trade this action for respect and sort of like status or whatever, you know. So then so that was that. I went through school. It wasn't particularly bad in school, just more of a messer. But then I remember at 12, I started taking drugs. My teenagers, there was a few different things that really impacted upon me, right? And I'll just explain, because I'll draw these back to like the negative self-beliefs in a second, because so within a quick sort of period of time, I witnessed the violent murder of the violent death of someone. I was held at gunpoint twice, right, within this really short period of time.
What age were you at this?
This was like the start of my teenagers,
Yeah.
right? And but the thing about this is like, so to go back to the negative self-beliefs, and I know like Gabor Mate talks a lot about this, and it's like it's not the trauma, it's the story we tell. Right, so it's like the experience of the violence. So seeing violence happening to someone else, it's like that thing from being a child of not being able to help. Right, so it's like it's pressing on that weakness.
Yeah.
Right, so the when I got held at gunpoint, we were all drinking. We were all drinking in the park. I was like, I was really, really struggling emotionally. You know, by that time I'd started taking drugs. I was staying out for days and not coming home, you know, and I was like 14, whatever, 13, 14, staying out, taking these, and are coming home in bits, and like there was obviously then there was violence that would come from that as well. I had started to get a bit bigger, so I used to come home drunk and start trying to fight me dad, you know. I'd like wake him up looking for fights, and there was a lot of resentment, you know. So this was all going on at the same time. But then when I got held at gunpoint, and we were all drinking in the park, and there was a fella came along, and he started picking on one of my friends who was like a bit smaller. He had some really bad experiences as well. He used to like try to protect him and that, you know. So he starts picking on him, and I says, "Oh, now again, like thinking I'm the tough guy, right? I says, pick on someone your own size." And he says, "Yeah, I'll be back for you." And so I had bleeding 6 cans of druids, you know. I didn't care. So I go on. Did you know? I thought I was the man. He's at the go and running from me, yeah.
Yeah.
And so he touches on, and we're all drinking. And next he comes back, breaks me nose with the gun, yeah, and has me on the ground, has the gun in my mouth, yeah. And he's saying, "I'm gonna blow your head off," blah blah. And I'm like crying, yeah. And anyway, sirens and all came, fueling that was there drinking with. They had run off and start telling people. So anyway, he runs off. And the thing is, right, so when you tell that story, it sounds like really traumatic, right? But what happened wasn't the trauma. The trauma for me was that everyone's seeing the weakness. Everyone's seeing me as a child watching other people be hurt, right? It was like, from that time, I believed I was weak.
Yeah.
And it's like, I had done everything I could to hide that from the world, you know? And it's like, now I was exposed. I was exposed, and that was what hurt.
Wow.
Yeah, right? So then, so then there's this, and then I start really acting out after this experience, and I'm like, I get like really bad. I ended up kicked out of school, and I'm like, I was really hurting. The bullying didn't stop. I had a group of friends now, but I had, I don't know if you remember, but pennies, yeah, all they used to sell was like stripy jumpers. And I was tall and skinny, yeah. And it was like, so all my jumpers were like pennies jumpers, and everyone just used to call me, "Where's Wally?" And I don't know, look, that just really, like, it bothered me, because I had all these experiences of being bullied. People used to always call me ugly, yeah. And I know people will laugh at this, right? But that was, like, well, if you call me ugly, that's grand, I'll laugh it off. But if I go up the road and someone else is calling me ugly, but they don't know you, when I start hearing it from all these different places that don't know each other, I'm like, this must be true, man. Yeah. So then these are all adding layers to these negative self-beliefs, And then it's like, again, I know violence is currency. And it's like, I can stop this by hurting people.
The only thing you could control.
Right.
Really.
It's like, I can, exactly. I can take back the control, So anyway, I start acting out at this time. And then my uncle, that was the second time I got held at gunpoint. So my uncle thinks it's a great idea now to threaten me with a gun. He's like, if you don't stop acting the bollocks for my sister, it's like, and I was like, that wasn't even about the negative self-beliefs. That was just a feeling of betrayal, and like, but it really hurt me. It really hurt me because I felt like that other people let this happen, and I was like, I felt so alone. I was really, really hurting, but I didn't know how to express it. And I was just taking drugs all the time. Like I just wanted to be stoned every single day. And lucky I was hanging around with a lot of fellas who were also really hurt. And like what we would do for fun is like every day we would meet up, we would say, who has stuff? If nobody had that, we went and got it. It didn't matter what we had to do. Yeah. We would mug people. We would do whatever, We'd rob people. We'd find people who had drugs and just take their drugs. This is what we done. We found a way to get stoned. That was it. And so this is all going on, and then this is when like the violence really started to take off as well. It's like that was the first time I don't know how much detail I should go into here, but I'll just.
Whatever you feel, but the thing, Bob, that strikes me, I just think that's just such a powerful description. Like it was hiding the weakness being exposed. You built up this ego, this reputation, that was destroyed. Then you were betrayed. Then the loyalty of your family's gone. You feel alone. But something, and again, it was something we chatted about earlier, like in the prisons, and we'll get into that people are just feeling sad. But all your friends probably looked upon as angry, violent people like yourself. But really, it was a vulnerability and a sadness there that was really driving all of that,
Yeah, 100%. And look, in terms of like the wanting to be tough, it's like, so just what I was going to say there is like, so the first time I ever stabbed someone, I was 16, yeah, and it was like it was not in a defense, like nobody died, yeah. But it was a form of self-defense. So my friend had got into a situation and he was getting it. Like people was hitting him with weapons. And now my friendship group, some of the people that I was with had been stabbed, yeah? And it's like we were fighting with people, and so it was like we were all carrying weapons, And I know that people would say, right, like that's wrong, people shouldn't be doing that. But I wasn't carrying a weapon because for no reason. It wasn't, do you get me? Like there was like I really felt like that. I was like, I felt under threat. And I also felt that I really had to protect myself because the experiences that I had to expose my weakness, I couldn't let that happen again. Yeah. I couldn't let it happen again. And
I'm even trying to think, Bob, because some people say, well, why didn't you just remove yourself from the situation? But I'd say, because I know these situations, I've seen this transpire over time. Like that's all you knew. That was the only place where you felt like you belonged. So there was nowhere else even for you to go.
But I don't even think that that's the full picture, right? Because I think that, right, this is what usually happens. People go, oh, I fell in with a bad crowd, right? That's the thing you usually hear. And for me, what I feel is that we look for external validation of how we feel internally. And I felt chaotic. I felt really alone. I felt like, there was a lot of sadness in me, And what I looked for in the world was validation of that. And I found other people who mirrored that back for me. Other people who were also broken, So it's like, I wasn't going to run because these are the only people that I felt that really got what I was experiencing, I remember that with the group that I hung around with, I remember feeling like, although, right, so we were all carrying weapons, like we were fighting with other people, but this also makes me afraid of my friends. Because it's like, if something goes wrong, he's going to stab me, man. And look, I've had experiences that where like our group of friends where like absolute mental stuff happened between us, And it's like when people are like so on edge and like ready to use violence, that doesn't just go outwards to other people. That goes, we've done that on each other, you know. But the point I was going to make is that, so like, first of all, that I sought out, so I wasn't going to run because that's what I wanted, yeah, because that was mirroring how I felt, and also the stuff that was going on at home. Like, I felt, I don't know, like the sense of betrayal, and I didn't want to let anybody in the house hurt me anymore, you know. And I felt like that when I had these friends who were like really tough, I felt like that I had a sort of protection, you know, even though I, like, logically they weren't going to come to my house and attack anyone with me. But it was a more of a feeling, you know, of just like, yeah, I have people around me that's tough, that have me back, man. Yeah. Do you get me? Yeah. And that was it. So, but then, so just I got kicked out of school anyway. So the mainstream education, they couldn't do me. But that was a few weeks before my junior cert, and I ended up going to Youthreach. But not long after, I ended up getting nicked. I think it was my junior night. I bought a bottle of vodka and a Mazda 626, like literally 10 minutes later, which was always going to be
like and your junior saying, no, kids now, like a Mazda 626 and a bottle of vodka.
I remember like the man that was selling me the Mazda, man. He was like, he goes, can you drive? I was parked in the garden. And I goes, yeah, I can drive. I was a weapon, yeah. And I started like, I went stuck in reverse. I nearly hit his car. And he's like, look, he goes, get out, I'll do that, yeah. He took it out. Anyway, my mate's brother, he's only a year older than us. Like, we were sort of the same group. We all like drank together and stuff like that. But I remember he was saying, he's like, Bob, give me the keys, man. He's like, you're going to end up driving that. I said, I'm not going to drive it, man. I'm not stupid. Ended up dropping ears, went to the carnival. Do you remember the carnival? They used to be always at the shopping centre.
Yeah.
Went to that, jumped on the wall, just rushed, man, rubbing each other's faces, yeah. Yeah, right. So anyway, that was like, we done that. I went back and I was like, everyone in the car. And I was like, so the car was like full. It's like literally about 10 people in the car, people on each other's laps and all. We went up to the Chinese, few of them went in. I ended up getting nicked. Garda drove in and nicked me. And so after I got nicked, me mate, I had like 100 blueies in my sock. They're like Valium, yeah? Yeah,
Valium, benzos,
yeah. So I threw them in the back. My mate had an ounce of hash, threw it in the back. They just let him go. So I ended up getting nicked for the drugs. So I get out of the Garda station. I was in the car station for ages, because you're under 18, your mad ass come get you, yeah? So ended up with, he goes, right, come on, there's someone there for you. So it was my brother. My brother's like, man, I'm not happy with you. It's like, come on, he's stating the obvious here, man. So I got home, all my stuff was in bags. And like, again, this goes back to like the sense of betrayal, yeah? Because it's like, I already felt like that.
And belonging, lack of belonging.
Lack of belonging. I already felt like I was on the outside, you know? I didn't feel like I was a part of the family, man. And like, that was really hurting, you know. So I came back and there was like all this stuff in bags, and I had swapped a fella a crossbow for a half ounce of hash. Do you know what a crossbow is?
Yeah.
So I ran up. I seen that wasn't there. Ran up, grabbed that, came back down. I stand at the front door, and I was like, held my finger on the doorbell, and my dad comes out with a baseball bat. Like, I just remember lifting it up, and I remember like the look of fear on his face, and I remember being like, I don't know, this is going to sound really bad, and I don't mean this. And I actually, like, it's nothing against me dad, yeah, but like, I remember being like really like happy, proud. I was like, you know, I was like, man, like, now I'm the man.
Yeah,
you know,
that makes sense. That makes perfect sense, though, psychologically as well. Like, you know,
yeah, and obviously that wasn't good, yes. So I ended up getting nicked again, yeah. And so I ended up getting nicked again. That second time in the night, and then I got taken out of the Garda station by social workers the second time, and. Like I said, I had started in Youthreach, so they brought me down to I was in like a children's sort of hostel thing, yeah, and then I was going to Youthreach, and yeah, so Sandra, there was this teacher from Youthreach who was like, honestly, she was like just the nicest woman, yeah. She used to like call me back at the end of the day, and she'd be like making sure it was all right, and I was like, I think she could see I was hurting, you know, and so she started, like, she was giving me money out of her own pocket and stuff. But she was like, let me get your ma down here and let's see if we can sort this out. So I remember, like, I had this sit down in the Youthreach. It was like my ma, my dad, and me, and Sandra. And my ma just said, we don't want you, basically. I know that's probably not the words that was said, but that's what I heard.
Felt,
that's what I heard. And I remember I was too, like, I had to be like tough, you know. I wasn't going to cry, but I remember I could feel the tears in my eyes, you know. I wanted someone to see the pain I was in, man. Yeah. The hurt. And that's not like poor me, you know. It's like, it's really not, you know. I understand that, like I said, I was hurting other people, but I was like, I was a child, man.
You needed a hug.
I-
The child needed a hug. You need to be wrapped up. You needed to feel like you belonged, like someone had your back. That's
100%.
what it
And that's
was.
why, like, every time I acted out up to this point, it was always just like punishment, you know? And I was like, it's like no one could see what I actually needed, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, so then that was it. I was homeless, and I ended up back in the house, back and forth. But the thing is that my life sort of took a change here in a positive way, yeah. So I ended up going to a FOSS course after Youthreach, and I remember, like, that was in catering, and the teacher, the guidance counselor, called me up and she goes, "Would you like to go to college?" And I was just like, honestly, I didn't know one person who went to college, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just like, all right, like, and she's like, she applied for me to go to the PLC, yeah, in catering across the Ede. And I ended up getting in Finglas, right? I ended up getting accepted, and I done really well. Ended up from that, got a job as a chef, and within like 3 years, I was like running a small kitchen in town.
No way, I didn't know that.
Right?
Yeah.
But this is the thing, right? So it's like, but as this is happening, so just to explain, so when I was 16, my lung collapsed from the drugs I was smoking. When I was 18, I had a heart attack. Would have been dead only for I was found in the bed choking.
Coke, was it?
From the coke, yeah. So would have been dead only for the doctors found me. So the drug use and the violence didn't stop. I went to college, and it's like my life took on this like two separate paths, right? So it's like I'm in college, I'm in work, and I'm like doing really well, and I'm working as a chef, and like there was one job, I was in that job where I was running the kitchen, and I was like every Monday or Tuesday, I can't remember, I was creating new plates for the new dishes for the menu, right?
Yeah.
And I was working with, I won't say his name, he was like a celebrity chef at the time, yeah, or whatever, or someone that worked with him, yeah. And man, I always had been up for days, man. I couldn't even have my mouth was like cotton, yeah. I was like, couldn't even taste that, man. I was like, oh yeah. No, I think there's a little bit of salt on that, you know. My whole life was a blag, man. Yeah, right. And but so I end up doing. So my life is on these two paths. So it's like I'm in work, and everyone thinks it's like, oh, he's like successful. And then like I'm also like when I'm out of it, I'm like attacking people, you know. Yeah. And it's like my friends, they stopped even inviting me. Like when they were drinking, they'd be like, "Don't tell Bob," you know, because they used to say, they're like, "You're the only person who gets angry on ears." And like, I don't know, people might not know who have never taken these, but it's a love buzz. Yeah. It's like you love everyone. It's like I love you, I love, right? And I used to get angry on it. And but anyway, so then these two things are happening at the same time. That went on for a couple of years, but and I was also like dabbling in selling drugs. And I know we spoke about this. I know you've spoke a lot about this as well publicly. I've seen the thing you've done on RTE, where it's like most people that sell drugs are just addicts. Yeah. And I just like, that's what I was doing, man. Yeah. Drugs are expensive, right? And it's like, I had to feed me habit, and me wages wouldn't cut it, man.
Yeah.
Do you know? Like, I used to go, like all I'd eat every day was a 4-in-1 out of the Chinese when I got home. Everything else was just spent on drugs. Yeah. So,
smoke hard for me, the rest was drugs.
100%, right? But yeah, you have this like things like that will sustain me. Yeah. You know? And so anyway, so then that's going on. I was dabbling selling drugs, but then it turned out I left that job, went to another job, and I ended up hurting someone at the Christmas party. And this was like where the like two worlds like collided. Right?
This is, I have a chapter in my book called Worlds Collide. It was like the lie meets...
Loved your book, man.
Meets the addiction. Cheers, man. I wasn't planning to shout that out there. But it's... Go on. So something else I want to say. Go on, sorry.
No, so the two worlds collided. And then it's this moment of like reckoning. And it's like, what am I doing? I got a tattoo. After that happened, I got a tattoo of a pentagram on my back. I Googled the symbol for evil, right? I honestly believed I was evil. Wow. So the thing is that, so like what I sort of touched on earlier was that, so the whole thing around, see, like when you have the violence as currency and you hurt other people and you get the status, like people don't really talk about what that looks like in reality because the status doesn't come straight away. So it's like, if I stab someone, yeah, it's like straight after I do that, like people aren't like, oh, like, yeah, you're the man. People are like, what the fuck, man? He's gonna die. Like, to get me, like, it's fucking very real. Yeah. And like you mentioned something to me before, and it was like, I used to have this thing, so the thing about me being evil, I never once woke up in the morning and was like, I'm gonna fuck people up today. That wasn't in me thought. But what would happen is that things would occur in the course of my day and I'd be triggered and people would touch on that weakness or whatever and I'd like explode, right? Yeah. But when I would go home and I'd be in my bed on my own, I remember like just being like, why am I doing this? Look, I hated myself.
Yeah.
There was so long where I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. Part because I thought I was so ugly because of these negative self-beliefs. And in part because I just thought I was disgusting. I disgusted myself, you know? And so anyway, so when the two worlds collided, I was like, I don't know, I just didn't see it as sustainable anymore. So I gave up trying to be the good guy, you know, and I just said, right, I'm going all in selling drugs, and I'm just gonna, because I was looking around, man, those people who I knew well, who I grew up on, they're like driving nice cars, they're going on nice holidays, and look, the whole time I was working, yeah, I was selling stuff as well, but it was only to feed me habit. I was on me bollocks, man. I hadn't got a washer, you know, so I wanted more, you know, and I seen this as a way to get it, and so that's what I done. I went all in selling drugs, and it went really well. And I mean that in a sense of like, I got all the material stuff. I had a nice car. I was with the pretty girl. I was going on holidays. You know, if I wanted to eat out, I went. I didn't have to think about it. I had more cash than I had ever had in my life, you know. But the thing is that with that came more of hurting people, because it's like it's intrinsic in that job, right? And then that's like, that was obviously not making me feel good. And also something I never touched on as well was like, so I had been suicidal since I was a child. There used to be like, there'd be things happening in the house, and I remember I used to like bang my head off the wall and I'd be like, I just want to die. And like for me, analysing this, what I feel like happened, and like maybe someone who knows more about this can actually educate me, right? Because I don't know if this is actually the way it works. But what I feel happened is that I was banging my head off. You might actually be able to with the neuroscience, right? So the thing is that I was banging my head off the wall, and like I was learning, I believe, in them moments that through harming myself, I could regulate, you know? So what happened is that as I grew older, every time I would get overwhelmed by stress, I would ruminate on self-harming thoughts. And that was how that was like, it doesn't matter what's going on because I can just kill myself anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's funny because there's multiple things going on there, Bob, and I wouldn't know the depths of it, to be quite honest. But that's a way, again, it's back to that control, right? I can't control these thoughts. What can I do where I can control it by banging my head off the wall? And it's a form of like stimming, even the sensory stimming kind of a thing, where you're just banging your head against the wall to escape the feelings, escape the beliefs, escape that pain. I'd say that's a big factor of what's going on there, you know?
Yeah. But so anyway, so what happened is like I was selling drugs, but although I had all the material things that I thought I wanted, I was more miserable then than I had ever been. I used to be just in the shower and I was just thinking about killing myself, you know, and I was like, what is going on here? You know, I really thought that all the material things was like success. So I thought, I was like, I've made it. Like, why am I? And then I started thinking that my brain just wanted to kill me. I couldn't trust my own brain. And in the end, what happened was that I made a plan, and I said, so I was selling drugs, I was making, like I said, good money, but I made a plan. I was like, right, I'm going to just spend all the money, take all the drugs, and go on an absolute blowout, and then I was going to kill myself. So I was going to force myself in a situation where I had this big bill, and then I was just going to take my own life. So that was the plan. It was like flat out on the drugs, and then I remember like there was one morning I was in a gaff party, and I don't know, something just came over me, and I was like, today's the day. And I remember I didn't say it to anyone. I just got up and left, went back to the house I was renting, and I just threw all my stuff on the bed.
How did you feel, Bob? Did you feel calm?
So calm.
So there was no anger. The emotion was
everything
gone.
Everything was like peace, man. I was like, it's over. But what I hadn't said before, and I don't know, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
You can take it out if you want. So,
okay,
yeah.
Just because, look, what happened the year before is that a friend of mine had committed suicide, and this is another thing that I feel like is really important in this conversation. It's like, look, we were growing up with like friends dying from like overdose, friends dying from violence, friends dying from suicide. And like, we were so young, like it's not a normal, it shouldn't be a normal experience.
And this is the thing that keeps on cropping up with me in this conversation, and people will struggle to understand this, is this normalised violence. I think this is why Love Hate was so successful. It captured normalised violence. But like when these mad things happen, I remember being in a house party one time, someone ran in, started striping someone's face, blood everywhere, all over the floor. He went out into the front, he called an ambulance, and everyone started dancing again. I'm like, what's going on here? This is not normal. But it's like you even saying people jumping, 10 people jumping into the car, all locked and all. I've seen that hundreds of times growing up. Just if you're there, you just do it. And you don't even know why you're doing it. It's just, the normality of it's mental, like, you know.
100%. And like from what you're saying, I remember another friend who had died from a drug overdose. We were all at his funeral. And I remember, like, we were all on drugs. And one of the young ones that we hung around, she came in and she's like, look at you all. He's after dying from the drugs. These are all taking drugs. And everyone's like, will you cop on?
Yeah.
Look at the dramatic one over here.
Yeah.
As if she's the problem, like, you know? But anyway, so like, about the suicide, right? So a year before this, my friend had taken his own life. And this is like a childhood friend. I'd been like friends since like really, really small, yeah? And he took his own life. And I remember, so this is like the thoughts were all in my head already. And I remember looking at him in the coffin and being jealous.
Wow.
And I was like, he's after escaping this bullshit. And like, that was like, now when I look back, I realised that should have been alarm bells. But that was like, in my head, my mind was already made up. And I remember feeling like I lied in bed for about 3 days after his funeral, just crying because I knew the sadness all around, I was going to do this to everyone.
Yeah.
I knew it was coming, right? And I couldn't control it, you know? So anyway, I was in this house party just a year later, and I knew it was time. So I left, went back to where I was staying, threw all stuff in the bed, and I drove down to the same place where he had committed suicide. And I tied my jacket from the tree, tied it around my neck, and I jumped. And for whatever reason, I don't know, my jacket ripped, or the knot didn't hold, whatever, I hit the ground, yeah. And I remember feeling like so like defeated. I was like, after all, like it had been my whole life building up to this moment, and I failed, you know.
Mm.
So it was like, I was lying on the ground. I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I remember I ran out. I got my jump blades from my car, ran back in, and I tied the jump blades on the tree. I was like, right, that'll hold. And I was like, the peace and all was gone. And I was like, I was overwhelmed.
Do it quick before you change your mind.
So what I ran up to, it's in Blanche Village. I ran up to the top of the hill, and there was an off license. I got a shoulder of Jack Daniels. I came back down, and I was like, right, when this is gone, I'm going to do it again. So it was like down in it. But before I had jumped the first time, I'd sent off a few texts, basically just saying like, good luck. So people were out looking for me now, and people knew that I used to always go to this spot. So I'm here, I'm like drinking the Jack Daniels, and then the girl I was with, she walks into the bush, and like the jump leads are tied from the tree, and she's like, what's going on here? And then we ended up having a big fight, and it didn't happen. The girl who I have the child with, Jenny, right, so she had gotten clean and all at this stage, and she was like, just go get help. Like, just please, will you just go get help? Like, we have a son, please don't do this. So I ended up, I said, right, I went to the next day, I went to my doctor, and the doctor was like, look, you need to get signed in. Like, you need to be taken out. I went to the doctor and I said, look, have access to guns. I said, I'm going to kill someone else. I'm going to kill myself. I was like, something bad is going to happen here. Look, I knew it. Like, and I felt like that there was nothing I could do to stop it. So she said, you have to get signed in. I said, grand. So, like, I had these thoughts for my whole life, and expressing them to a stranger was really hard. Right? So I went to the doctor and I tell the doctor all the stuff I've been thinking, which is the first time I ever done that.
Making it real.
Ever done it, right? Mm. And then she goes, right, now you have to go tell someone else. And I couldn't do it. So I went on a drink and drug bender for a week, yeah? And then at the end of the week, I was like, dead, yeah? I was like, right, I'm going to go to the hospital. I had to like just wear myself down, you know? Went into the hospital, I remember handing her the letter, and she goes, this is from a week ago. And I was like, yeah, look, it's a bit of a tricky one, you know?
Yeah.
So she goes, look, leave it with me, I'll get the psychiatrist. So the psychiatrist comes down, brings me into a room, and I tell him the whole story. And he goes, right, he goes, just give me a minute, I have to go check something. Now, like, for me, I'm like, he's going to check and make sure that there's a bed. But he comes back and he goes, your problem is drug related, there's nothing we can do for you.
No, what?
Right? And sends me out the door.
Jesus.
So now I have this big bill, right? Because I have all the drugs that I had to take and all the money I'm had to spend in there. And then, so the people who I owe the money to, they got on to me and they said, so they heard I was trying to take my own life, and they said, look, kill yourself if you want, do that, and we're just going to kill your brother. Simple as, yeah? And like, this wasn't said like in such nice terms. So I was brought somewhere, I was basically told that, look, just stuff happened, yeah? I don't need to get into specifics, yeah? But it wasn't pretty. And so I was told basically anyway that if I was killing myself, they were going to kill my brother. They said, get the money, or they gave me a third option, which was there was someone they were fighting with that I had access to, and they said they wanted me to deal them in.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like, get involved in the murder, get the money, or allow my brother to die.
Did I? Jeez.
So I done, and look, again, I'm not excusing any of the stuff that I done, right? So all the offences that I went to prison for were all after this point, yeah? So I done all that I could. So basically, out of the 3 options, 2 of them meant someone died. The only other one where no one died was where I get the money.
Yeah.
So I robbed every single thing that wasn't nailed to the floor. Everything. If someone said, there's money there, I was going in.
Taking it.
You know? And so anyway, so that was the situation. I was waiting to go and do the robbery. And then that was what was going on. I was living like through that time where there was like, I knew there was threats on my life. I knew people were telling me that there was people trying to kill me. Because at this point I was like fighting with different people over different things. I had been up to no good for a long time, you know. And it was just absolute chaos, yeah. And yeah, so like I remember there was one time I was in a house party, and someone came along. They were like, "Look, there's someone trying to do you in," and I said, "Who only told me, right?" And I was like, I was smoking crack and all at this stage, yeah. And I was like, I don't know, everything's very intense, like,
yeah.
And so I was like, right, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And I started getting mad paranoid. And I started thinking that was the people that was in the house with. But I didn't, like, obviously all these people were just like people on drugs, yeah. So I went, got a gun, came back, and like they're all just sitting in the kitchen. I just walked in with the yoke, and I got no one. He's trying to set me up. Yeah. And they're like, what are you talking about? And then everyone's like backing off, yeah. And like I'm like manic. And then the girl I was with, she's like, please, just come on. And I was like, all right, she convinced me. Went there, we're driving around the car. And she's like in the passenger seat with a sock full of rounds. And then she's like, please, can we just go home? And I'm like, someone's dying. Like, I was like, my head was gone. Like, I just, like, honestly, like, it was like, I don't know, like, I don't even want to say psychosis because I don't know if that's what it was, but like, everything was just so mental, man. And anyway, so then this was the context, the robbery, and then, yeah, prison.
Health is one of my core values. And after chatting with Laura Dowling, the fabulous pharmacist, on this podcast, I began taking her Andropause for Men on our Fabio range, and the difference was huge. I noticed an immediate difference with my energy levels, but what I really love about Andropause is how the ingredients underpinning the products matched my lived experience. Research shows that Shilajit, zinc, and vitamin D support testosterone levels. The vitamin B's boost energy, and lion's mane improves focus, all of which I felt after taking Andropause. If you've been feeling flat, foggy, or like the colour has faded from the TV, check out Andropause at fabuwellness.com. Prison. So what was, like, as I want to get onto the change, like what you're after describing here, Bob, is like, it's crazy shit. And a lot of people won't have heard of stories like this before. From the background I've come from, like we come from the same area. I'm nearly visualising some of the names and the people and stuff like that. But
that's the sadness, I think.
Yeah, that's the sadness.
This is the thing. My story is not special, man.
Yeah.
My story is like, you can bring any number of people that I grew up with, any number of people. You can just, honestly, man, there could be a line around the corner of people who can tell you this story, and that's the sad part. That's the sad part.
But you know what the amazing part is, Bob, is like this podcast. What's it called? Change is possible. We'll get into where you were today. Like, you're doing incredible things today, like incredible things in academia, in the workplace, and what you're going to do in terms of educating people around this stuff. But before we get into the good stuff, like how long did you get? So you got a stint in prison.
So I got like a sentence on a sentence on a sentence on a sentence on me. So I got loads of different sentences. I ended up at 10 years.
Right.
So I've done over 7 years.
Over 7 years. Yeah. And just for people listening, like you're not out too long.
It's September.
So we're talking like a couple of months, like 3 months.
Yeah.
And 10 year stint. What happened when you went into prison? Like when did the shift occur? When did the change occur?
When I went in, I knew something had to change. So Jenny, the girl I had the kids with, she had gotten to recovery, and she was always saying, you should try get clean. And I was like, listen, it's not happening. I actually used to say, oh, addiction doesn't exist. That's what I used to say, yeah. Because I was like, I choose to take drugs. Like
that was the defense mechanism.
Yeah, I love drugs.
Yeah,
like absolutely. Like I did. I loved them. Yeah, because they were my escape. You know? But that's like. But anyway, so when I went in, I was like, it was either like the last time I took a drug, 4th of November 2018. I was lying in the cell. We had taken pills, smoking joints, and the drugs, they weren't working anymore, man. they weren't working. I wasn't.
I know that feeling.
I wasn't like, they weren't, I was still miserable. They weren't even giving me that little bit of, the little pick-me-up, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, right, something has to change. So I made a commitment to myself. I said, I'm going to go out on the land in the morning, ask for a job as a cleaner, and just try to stay clean tomorrow. And that's what I've been doing ever since. I went out, got a job as a cleaner, and now I didn't like, when I stopped taking drugs, that was probably the most intense of all the experiences I've ever had.
Yeah.
Because all this stuff, while all the stuff I'm after mentioning to you happened, right? Like they would pop into my head and I knew they happened, but I never understood how they were impacting the way I was acting today.
Yeah.
They were just things that happened.
Yeah.
You know? So the negative self-belief, didn't know about any of that, everything was just like this list of chaotic
Just
things.
in a blur, like.
Yeah, it was just a list of madness, mad things, mad stories that I tell on the yard, you know? And so anyway, when I got clean, it was like everything came back and all the feelings that were associated to it. And so Jenny, she's like, you need to meditate. So she started sending me up like books on like meditation. And I was trying to meditate every day. Literally, so I was only clean about 2 months. And then a friend of mine was murdered. And I don't know, I felt like that was really hard because I had like feeling of guilt around that, you know, because it's just like,
and you had no coping mechanism. There was no drugs.
There was no drugs,
Yeah.
man. And I was like, so it was like, that was like really hard. And I went really into myself. I stopped mixing with people on the landing. I'm sure everyone thought I was a weirdo. I spent it all the time on my own in the cell. I was just lying on the floor and just listening to everyone walking around. And look, I was really missing the kids, even though all the madness. Yeah, I really just, I loved being a dad, you know?
Yeah.
And so I remember, like, I used to lie on the floor of the cell and I used to, like, feel the air in the room. And I was like, this air is the same air that's touching me kids. So it was like through that, I was like trying to, like, stay connected.
Some connection.
Yeah.
There's so much I want to say here, Bob. Like Lynn Ruan, who was on this podcast, introduced us, but you had an impact on me. I forgot about this, that we met like about 3 years ago when I was doing a talk in the progressive unit in the Joy. And I remember you made a real lasting impact on me. I could just feel your sharp insight that day. You were saying, like, we have a gang of people struggling with addiction in here, like gangs of people. Yet they just have one addiction counsellor. Like, it's the perfect storm to bring in the resources to help people with addiction in that prison. But yet, what's actually happening in the prison? And I want to go into what prison life is like. But you told me a story about prison. Like, you talk about prison to rehabilitate people. But tell me that story, like, of the guy. The guy thing. I was actually telling Bob about the story I heard, and he's like, so I was the one that told you that. I was wondering where I heard it from. So
right,
tell us the story.
So how right, so before I go into the story, I need to explain, right? So whilst I healed, so just to explain, right, so I healed in prison. I stopped taking drugs, like I said, haven't taken a drug, dealt with my violent tendencies. I have learned how to regulate and how to be a better person, basically, right?
Yeah.
But I always say to people that I healed despite prison, not because of it. So people always go, oh yeah, but I healed in prison and that means that prison is healing. Prison is harmful and harm is not healing, right? So that's like the starting point, right? So I healed I stopped taking drugs despite being surrounded by active drug use. I stopped being violent despite being in an inherently violent place, you know? To give you an example, my very first day in prison, I was paranoid, had this big bill. I'm sitting in the wreck, and like some dude just starts getting his face chopped up. Yeah, he's sitting on the toilet. He's obviously going to the toilet, and he gets dragged out. He's like whatever, all over his arse. Yeah, and it's like I was like honestly, and that's like right. This is prison.
Yeah,
and it's like so we can't go. Oh yeah, if people are struggling, if people are in addiction, let's send them to the place where all this madness occurs. You know, and then this comes to what I said to you. It was like if you play the sport, right, whatever sport, pick a sport.
Gaelic, okay.
Right, so yeah. So you're big into Gaelic, you play it all the time. So someone comes along to you and they go, all right, we're going to send you to this Gaelic camp where absolutely every single person there is like plays Gaelic, thinks about Gaelic, talks about Gaelic. Even when you're out for your exercise, you're going to talk about Gaelic. When you're in the school, you're going to talk about Gaelic. That's it. Gaelic is like, this is the number one topic of this place. You spend 5 years, 7 years, 3 years in this camp. You're coming out of there better at Gaelic, right? And this is what we do as society. We say these people who have these maladaptive coping strategies, and then we take them all and we send them all to the one place and let them all learn from each other. And then we act surprised when it doesn't make them better. They come out and we're like, oh my God, he has 100 previous convictions. Like, just to explain, right? So it's like, you can talk about addiction, right? So it's like all the different addiction literature is explaining that building pro-social bonds helps people to heal, right? Isolating people creates and exacerbates addictive tendencies. What we do in prison is we destroy their connection with their family and any good relationship that they might have, and we isolate them. And not only then, we isolate them from society, but then this person comes in with an addiction, and they have this addiction, they don't have any money, and then people exploit that, and they're like, oh yeah, here, I'll give you a few pills if you pick up in the yard. So the drugs come over, they pick up, and then they get a P19. And then what do the jail do? The jail go, oh, you picked up, you broke the rules, so now you have extra time in the cell on your own. So then he's like, oh, now I have to deal with this extra isolation. So the next day he picks up again, and they take away his phone calls. 1 6-minute phone call a week now he's on, yeah? And then he's like, oh, now I can't even talk to me kids, right? And then he goes out to the yard, he picks up again, block. So they now it's like 23-hour lockup on his own for whatever, 40 days.
Can I just talk about this from a scientific perspective as well, Bob, right? Talk about addiction, right? There's a great line Johann Hari says, sobriety is not the opposite of addiction, connection is, right? And it's a huge part. Like, if you take drugs, you disconnect with yourself, then you disconnect with other people, right? So connection is key. You've talked about lack of connection, lack of belonging in your life as well. We need connection, human connection, like we need food and water. It's a basic human need. And there's some really super science, right, showing us, right? Professor Kay Toy over in Stanford University, right? She's found these pro-social networks in the brain that when we are socially isolated, the brain releases dopamine to drive us and motivate us to go and connect with other people. But if we're not connected with ourselves, we probably think we crave drugs, or we crave violence, or crave something that sort of fills that hole. So we go and do that thing through the isolation. But there's also this recent research around this molecule metabolite called tachykinin. And when people are socially isolated, there's a buildup of this in the brain that makes them aggressive, paranoid, anxious and stressed. So literally what you are doing by isolating people in prisons, you are exasperating every single thing that gives them some kind of an opportunity to heal, grow, or be rehabilitated. So like the isolation, it just does not work from a biological level, from a social level, a psychological level, from every level. Like, it's crazy.
And this is exactly why prison can never be rehabilitative.
Yeah.
So that's like the addiction, right? And then it's like we talk about violence, right? So it's like the core drivers of violence, and this is based off like a few different people, but it's supplemented from various different academics, right? So it's like shame and humiliation, shame, isolation again, exposure to violence, and an inability to meet one's economic needs. Right, so these are the core drivers of violence, right? So not only, so all these things are present in the prison, in the prison, they're very like the setup of the prison, right? But also then we have to look, so it's like now we're looking at prison creates and exacerbates violent and addictive tendencies in the people who go there. And there's a fella, James Gilligan, he was the former head of the Centre for the Study of Violence at Harvard. And he says that if you wanted to turn a non-violent person into a violent one, the best way to do that would be to send them to prison.
Mad.
Right? But then this is what we do, right?
Yeah.
And then just to make the point, it's like we also have to understand, so the prison is creating and exacerbating these issues. But then we have to go back and it's like, well, why are so many people from just certain areas, right, ending up in prison? And it's like prison isn't, so there's this idea that prison is this place where we send bad people. Okay? The IPRT, Irish Penal Reform Trust, have done research, and they showed at the time of this research, 56% of prisoners in Mountjoy came from just 6 districts in Dublin. Right? Why? Why is that? Is it like there's something in the water? You know, is that what it is? Like, are we just bad people? You know, no, of course it's not. It's like it's these experiences of structural issues like homelessness, poverty. Like we're talking about adverse childhood experiences. The thing about adverse childhood experiences is that it's not the actual experiences of trauma that causes the impact. It's the person's relational health at that time. So it's like the amount of supportive networks they have. So it's like, so someone experiences a really traumatic thing. But if I have caring people in my life that can be an emotional buffer, I'm going to heal, and I'm not going to develop these addictive tendencies or the violent tendencies, right? But it's like, so then if I don't have it, I'm more likely. But then what inhibits it, right? So my caregiver has to be like attuned to me. So it's like, what blocks attunement? Well, if someone in my life is worrying about the bills, if they have mental health problems, if they have addiction issues, you know. So it's like, well, then now we're starting to see a bigger picture, because it's like the areas where people haven't got as much economic resources, where people have a higher concentration of like mental health, where there's like, obviously in them areas, then we have less resources in order to be able to deal with. And then these are the areas where people are experiencing the same traumas maybe that people in other areas are. But then the other people in the other areas aren't becoming violent and addictive because they have this emotional buffer.
Yeah, human connection.
And this is this thing, but then people always have this argument. They're like, oh, but it happened to him and he didn't become an addict. Or he didn't. And it's like, well, actually, mate, let's look at what was the state of his life at that time.
Yeah.
And then we'll start to unpick that. But we can't just go, I experienced this and you experienced this and I didn't do that, so that means that you're a bad person. That's not the full picture.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm even pulling this back. I'm only just realising this as well with my own history as well, Bob. Because when Gabor Mate said it for me, I knew about my traumas, right? But he asked me, who did you tell about the challenges you were facing? And I said, no one. And he says, that was your trauma. It was the disconnect. I had people there that would have helped me if I spoke out, but ego, like even as a 10-year-old, 11, 12-year-old kid, the ego and the male ego, I didn't want to talk about that because it'd see me as weak. I didn't want to admit it to myself. But it was when I found recovery, my family were there to support me and connect with me, and the healing started. It all comes back to connection and having a sense of belonging, you know?
Yeah. But this comes back to like the thing about support, because what I actually said to you that day was that we have all these people in prison, and that if we had the supports in order for them to heal, like to help them heal, that we could do the work. But I have changed my view on that in a sense that I believe that even if you had a best practice level of psychologist to client ratio in the prison, we couldn't get the outcomes that we want.
Because it's in prison.
Because it's in the prison. Let me tell you why, right? Because so in the prison, the psychology and the addiction, they sit on this thing called a prison review committee meeting, which means that, so basically they sit on a meeting. So there's a meeting every month that decide if a prisoner will go to an open prison or if they'll get early release, right? So the psychology and the addiction sit on these meetings. So if I go and tell the psychologist all the stuff that's really going on in my head, he's going to go to that meeting and say, he's not ready. But I'm on the phone and my kids are crying and my partner's struggling, you know? And it's like, what am I going to do now? They pay getting the help you need against providing for your family.
Wow. It's
right?
no choice, really.
It's no choice.
Yeah.
And what happens is that you have to go and lie. And it's like, I'm meditating 10 times a day and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And yeah, I'm great. Everything's grand because I need to get home. So the coercive dynamic that the prison creates, and this is why prison can't heal people. We need to have alternatives to prison.
Yeah. What is the alternatives? Well, so let's say, and I play devil's advocate here, like let's say somebody, because I've done research. I studied this in philosophy, I think it was, of all things. And it was where rehabilitation doesn't work. But for some people, it's like they get a sense of justice from the perpetrator going to prison.
What is rehabilitation?
What is rehabilitation?
Because let me tell you one thing, right?
Yeah.
What I think is like rehabilitation frames it as that. So it's like you think about from an injury.
Yeah.
Rehab from an injury. It's about fixing something.
Yeah.
Right? So it puts it on the individual. And it's like the individual is broken and we need to fix him.
Yeah.
Right? But it's like, well, why is the individual broken? And then we have to look at the structural issues.
Again.
Well, then again, why is so many people in this area broken, but all these people over here, they're not broken? Well, why is that?
Yeah.
You know, because to go back to the history of the prison, right? So I know this is like going away and you want to touch on
we can come back to it.
Well, I just want to touch on this, right? Because this is a thing that people don't really understand. Is that, so the history of prison, so before the Industrial Revolution, prison was only used in order to hold people for it until they could enact a physical punishment. Like, so it's like, Brian, you've done something, we grab you. We throw you in prison, we hold you there, and we give you 50 whips, and then we let you go, right? So this was it. Punishment was physical, unless you were a debtor. So the criminalization of poverty existed even before we use prison the way we do, right? And then we have the Industrial Revolution, and they're trying to force people into cities. They have what are called enclosure acts, right? So people used to live communally in the land. So they enforce these enclosure acts where they go, bah, that's our land now, pay him rent. And it's like, well, how can I pay rent? All I have is the land. And it's like, oh, well, then you go to the city and you work for the capitalists, right? And then they start, so people are like, poverty, right? They have no money, no way to sustain themselves. They go to the city, and then this is like the gin craze, what you will have heard of. This is the first exponential rise in addiction ever recorded. Is at this very time, because people are like devoid of meaning and purpose, right? And they go into the cities, and then the prison is used to like lock people up, right? But then the new capitalists, the factories that are taking off, they need this way to quantify time, like wage labour. So they quantify time, so it's like wage labour, and they use prison sentences. So prison is inextricably linked to the development of capitalism. It's like, you do this wrong, 6 months. You do this for me, whatever amount of money. And they start to quantify these things. This is all happening at the same time, but it's all around controlling the poor and the working class. And that's what prison has been ever since. It's been a way to, it's been hanging over us as a society for a threat. It's like the people with the money, they're up here, and it's like the people on the bottom, we hang prison over you, and it's like you
obey,
step up,
you
don't obey, we'll put you in here in this place that's like really bad, yeah. So that's what prison has been all about.
That's mad. I never knew the history of that. And then circling back then to the question today, like, so if somebody did commit a crime, let's say, what would your solution be? If prison isn't the solution, what is the solution? Like, because people do have to feel to get a sense of justice and stuff like that. I would believe that's if a crime is being perpetrated.
Right. So first of all, it's like, what is justice, right? But we can go into that or not, whatever, right? But the thing is, so we're not going to have a like for like, right? So the problem with prison is that we have this one. So if I murder someone, prison. If I rob that plant pot, prison. It's like, okay, but like, right, so we just give you different amounts of the same thing, right? So it's like, it doesn't really make any sense, does it? No. So if we're going, what do we do instead of prison, and we're expecting to have a like for like, well, then we're only going to end up with the same problem.
Yeah.
So I had this thing with a fella, he was in for fraud, and we were talking about this conversation, and he was like, I'm well educated, right? He was like, oh, I speak, 3 languages. He's like, this doesn't make any sense. He's like, they have me here. He's like, I could be giving grinds to students in business studies. This is a man who was in business for like 30 years, Yeah. It's like, there you go. Or I was like, so that's one thing. It's like, let the situation define the outcome, But it's also around, so you're talking about like victims, right? And it's like, what we do is like, we give victims, so what do victims want, right? So from my experience and the things I've read, and this is from people dealing directly with victims, is that victims want the person who hurt them to go away and never come back, right? So they want safety, essentially, right? And if they can't have this, they want to know that the person who hurt them is never going to hurt anyone else again. But what the prison does is give them neither. To go, we'll send them away for a bit, but to a place that's going to make them more likely to hurt people.
Gaelic camp to make them better.
Right? And the thing is that, so in Ireland, we have one of the highest reoffending rates in the world, right? So since the year 2012, after 3 years of release, over 60% of people have reoffended. So 3 of every 5 people going to prison since 2012 have reoffended, right? So it's like, what we're doing is creating more of the problem that we're trying to solve. So that needs to be the first question. When we're thinking of what to do instead, it has to be, does it create more of the problem? If the answer is yes, it's not the thing. We move on to the next one. And then in terms of victims, it's like this is really relevant for particularly for life sentence prisoners, because I think this is really important, because obviously people who have taken a life, that's like the most extreme crime. And like, one thing I would say about this is like the media, they portray them as like monsters, right? I've never met one monster. In fact, the people who are doing life sentences are actually some of the biggest role models in the prison. People who, so there's one thing I've done was like Alternative to Violence project, right? And they come in and they run courses. And a lot of these are facilitated by life sentence prisoners who are actively trying to help other young lads find non-violent solutions to conflict. But this isn't spoken about. People don't know this.
I've witnessed that in the prisons as well myself with a few of the lifers, yeah.
100%, right? And like there's one particular coming to my mind now. He's like big high profile, right? Won't say his name, right? Really high profile. And this fella, if there was a young fella come onto the land and he'd be straight down. He's like, all right, mate, listen, that's where the library is. This is where the gym is. Do you want to come out the yard? He'd be training with him. Do you get me? Like, he really looked after people. He was like people really respect him and looked up to him in a really positive way.
Yeah.
But then you see him in the papers and it's like he's saying, oh, he's evil and he's a monster. I'm like, this is just so far from the truth, man. But the thing is, right, so he goes up for parole and his victim, say it's been 20 years, and his victim says, I still feel the same today as I did the day he murdered X. And is that not a damning indictment on prison's failure to help victims? Because imagine you go to a doctor, right, and you have a headache, and the doctor says, okay, here, Brian, take this tablet. And you say, all right. He says, take one every day. He says, all right, grand, you take it. You go back after 6 months and you say, doctor, man, it's 6 months, I still have the headache. He says, don't worry, keep taking it. So you go back after 5 years and you say, doctor, it's been 5 years, man, I still have the headache. He says, oh, don't worry, you just keep taking that tablet. 10 years, keep taking it. 20 years, say, doctor, it's 20 years. Look, this headache still hasn't gone away. He says, don't worry, keep taking the tablet. That's what we do with prison. At some stage, we have to say, maybe this doesn't cure headaches.
Yeah. And it's back to, that's not justice. Like, they don't get justice. Justice isn't served through.
Aristotle said justice is people getting what they deserve. And victims, you think you send a life sentence prisoner, you send a prisoner to jail for 25 years, that's $2.5 million the state are going to pay to keep him. Because it's 99 grand a year to keep someone in custody right now. So $2.5 million the state are going to pay in order to hold this person in custody, right? What did the victim get? And I can tell you, not once in my whole sentence, I tried to do restorative justice. I really care if my victims are watching, I'm genuinely sorry. Reach out. I would love to apologise face to face. Love it. Absolutely love it. And that's not just victims who I was charged. If I've hurt you, I am genuinely sorry and I'm more than willing to try and make amends, right? But the thing is, throughout my whole sentence, no one ever asked me about my victims. They never said, how do you think your victim feels? How do you think your victim perceived that? Nothing. The victim never came into it. Not once. Not one person in the whole criminal justice system asked me about my victims. And to go back to Aristotle, what do victims deserve? They deserve a voice. And they deserve to be able to say, okay, I've been harmed, and this is what I think should happen. And that's what abolition, and I'm coming at this from an abolitionist perspective. In terms of, I think that prison is harmful, and this is what the literature says, it's not just me, and that we need to stop sending people to prison. And that's not we let everyone away with it. Yeah. This is that we have community-led responses to crime that give communities, individual communities, the ability, autonomy, agency, and power to deal with the issues that impact them in a way that meets their needs.
It's crazy. It makes so much sense when you say it like that. And I know it's not easy, but it actually sounds like it's not a simple thing to do, just such a logical thing to do. And you're talking, what was it, 2 million? Is it for
$2.5 million? It's 25 years, it's 99 grand a year.
So imagine that was invested back into the society, invested back into supporting those communities.
Give some to the victim, man.
That's 500 lifers. That's $1 billion. That's $1 billion.
Like. Give some to the victims. The victim, so the person who committed the murder, $2.5 million is spent on them. What's spent on victims? What do they get? They don't even pay for psychology, for counselling for victims. You know, did they get nothing? So that's what the state thinks of victims. The state just goes, I'm going to come down hard on the people who cause harm, and then again it's like, well, who are these people? Because you say, okay, if anyone commits a murder, everyone will get the same punishment. But shame, isolation, exposure to violence, and an inability to meet one's economic needs, poverty, isolation and poverty often come together. Mental ill health, shame is related to a lack of self-love in the literature. So feelings of neglect, right? And then shame, isolation, and exposure to violence. So we're growing up in communities that have concentrations of violence. So everyone's not really just as likely to do this. So it's like the state again, what I'm talking about, coming down in the working class, because the state is like, if you do this, we're going to spend $2.5 million, we're going to crush you. But it's crushing the people who are already the most vulnerable. who are in the areas that need the most support. So it spends $2.5 million on sending him to prison and really showing that the state is tough. And then the victim gets nothing, and the community, like all this stuff that I talked about that drove me into the cycles that I was in, all that stuff's still occurring.
Yeah.
So they send me to prison, and the next fella's just doing it.
It's just a conveyor belt.
It's never stopping.
Yeah.
It's never stopping, man.
It's mad, and it's an optics thing as well, because like I don't know much about politics, I don't know much about government, but from the little bit of exposure I've had personally to certain situations, I just saying it's an optics thing. They don't want to do something because it's the way they're viewed by the grander society, where they're not really, you need longer conversations like this, Bob, like this is what you need just to sort of get into the weeds with this, like, you know,
But
it's eye-opening for me.
It's this whole idea of like tough on crime, right? So politicians go, we're going to get tough on crime, or they're like, we're going to increase sentences. And what I'm saying to people is that I need you to hear this. When a politician says, I'm going to increase sentences, so someone is stabbed, yeah, and they go, we're going to increase sentence for a knife crime. What that politician is actually saying to you is, because you are angry, I'm gonna give you what placates you, what soothes you, even though I know, and the literature says it's something that is going to make you less safe. It's going to make you more likely of becoming a victim of the very thing that we're trying to tackle.
Yeah, it's like fixing it in the short term, purely from an optical perspective.
Yeah, it doesn't fix it,
and it's just for the optics of a short term what it looks like.
Because they think the public are idiots. They go, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to increase sentences, and then people buy it. It's like you need people to go, okay, this is one, not going to make us safe, and two, like, let's look at what's actually driving this. Do you know, like it's oh man, I can't keep on coming back to them, man. It's like it's the same people in the same places. Maybe we just need to do something else in these areas.
Yeah.
Maybe something needs to change here.
Yeah, I tell you, I'm loving your passion around this, Bob. It's incredible. I'm really feeling it, and you just epitomised this idea of change is possible. Like, from where you've come from to where you are now, the passion you have for driving this now. What do you do today? Like, there's a couple of things we touched on. Like, I'm sure your negative, your self-beliefs. Obviously, there's still work to be done. There's always continuous work to be done. You're fit, you're healthy and strong. I think a key component that came up a couple of times in today's podcast, a lack of purpose and usefulness in society. You don't know where you belong or what you're doing. Like, I feel like you've a really strong sense of purpose now, and you're only out a couple of months. But what other things have you done in your life that's drove this change?
Right. So in terms of how did I heal? And what do I do now with that healing?
Yeah.
So healing for me came from, well, one, stopping taking drugs. And I know that's maybe not achievable for everyone, but do it in the least harmful way, I would say, right? So really simple things, like I drink water every day. Like, as soon as I wake up, I have 2 liters of water, yeah? And then I always get at least 4 liters. I eat clean, I stretch, I train, I meditate, I get a good night's sleep, yeah? I went in a really in-depth and questioned my beliefs. I made like a piece of paper. I drew a load of lines, made a wall, and wrote down every belief I had about myself that was weak, that was ugly. And I found, so every negative one, I questioned them. Is that true? And can I find conflicting evidence for it?
Love it.
And it was like, okay, so to take example of like, I'm weak, right? So it's like, well, I was a child. Could I actually do anything? No. Right? So it was like, right, so I was like, okay, I'll cross that off, right? And then then I start to build this new image of who I am, morals. I really try to be honest. I try not to hurt people, you know? Like the things I value, like really simple things, like being on time, you know? It's like I show up in a way, but yeah, I show up. I show up every day to try and be the best version of myself. And then what that has done is that brought me into like education. And so I done an undergrad in prison through the Open University, yeah. And so I done that, and then I was released. I done some stuff with the Red Cross, with like I said, the Alternative to Violence Project. Then I was released. I just want to shout out Sheila Connolly, the Cork Alliance, and Damien Quinn, Spirit Nua, because yes, I done the theatre of the oppressed stuff with Liam, so we can't really talk about the ins and outs of that, because just what went on in there was what happened in there. Yeah. But then when I met Liam, Andrea, that teacher, I swear to God, right, it's like once I got clean, I just kept on meeting the people that I needed to meet at the time I needed to meet them. So I met Andrea, and she was like teaching me about, so I was like only clean, I had all this stuff going on in my head, and she started giving me all these like theoretical frameworks and concepts, and it would help me make sense of it. I was like, oh my God. Like, I started to like see from me, I was the problem, and I accept personal responsibility for stuff that I'd done. But I started to see how other issues were like constraining my ability to make other choices, right? And then so through that got me like engaged in education, and then that was why I went on to do the degree. And
you're doing a master's in criminology now.
No, now I'm doing a master's. Yeah. So I was released.
Yeah.
So I was released on the 3rd of September. I started my master's on the 4th. So I literally stepped out of prison on the 3rd of September, moved to Cork. Had never been to Cork in my life, and moved down there.
That's change is possible for you. Step out of prison one day, the next day doing a master's.
Man, it's actually mad because like, so I say like when I met Andrea, that changed my life because she actually was so compassionate, helped me heal. And then when I met Lynn, like, honest to God, man, there's no way for me to put into words the impact that me and Lynn had on my life, yeah? It's like
That's why we're here right now. Lynn says, you've got to talk to Bob. And I didn't know I'd met you a couple of years ago in the prison, yeah?
Yeah, she, like, honestly, you know what? It was like, so I told you this story earlier, right? But obviously I didn't say it on the podcast, but so I remember going into Andrea to teach, and I was like, Andrea, you need to teach me how to talk posh. And she was like, what are you talking about, Bob? And I said, no, I need to know how to talk like them because I was interested in all this education and all. And she was like, no, just be you. And I was like, no one's going to accept me as me. You know? I was like, I'm not going to get a seat at these tables, man.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then I met Lynn. And Lynn just comes in and she's just so Lynn. She's who she is. And then I just went, I don't need to be anyone else, man.
Yeah.
I just need to be me. And just, look, now I know me stuff. I became obsessive with studying because in my head, right, I was like, loads of people are going to have a degree. I have to know more than everyone else because not everyone's going to have the mad past I have.
Yeah, outwork them. I had that feeling as well.
And so I didn't watch telly for years, and that's like weird in prison. All people do, they get lost in telly. Telly are drugs, yeah. And I didn't watch telly. I was just read non-stop every day, and like that's why now I can just quote books off the top of my head. Yeah, so it's like I had to I'd read and I'd take notes and I'd make sure I'd embed it in my memory.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. Then when I met Lynn, I was just like, it just opened my eyes. I was like, here's this person who was just so like just normal, you know. And she's just doing it. She's just rocking it, you know. And I was like, that just gave me the. So then I stopped. I stopped like all this like trying to talk different and any of that stuff. And I was just like, I'm just gonna own it and just know me stuff and just bring it out there and just do me thing. Go on. You wanted to say?
No. Go on. Keep going. Keep going.
So then through that, then I done that, then I ended up getting a chance. So the IPS had wrote to me, Irish Prison Service, just because acronym, yeah. So the Irish Prison Service wrote to me. I was trying to get to an open prison. I was trying to get out faster, yeah. And then the IPS wrote back to me and said that I was deemed a threat to the public, that I wouldn't be getting anything, yeah. So I was like, all right, well, that's obviously not great, yeah. Because I'm doing all this work and I wanted to be recognised, right? So, but anyway, then we done the play with Lynn, the Theatre of the Oppressed, and the Director General of the IPS was there. And I can't remember the exact words, but it was like, I basically, so addiction had signed off me. Addiction were like, look, you're grand, yeah? Psychology had signed off me. And because I remember I used to go into psychology and I'd be quoting Carl Rogers, you know, and I'd be like, and they were like, what's going on here?
I know that.
Yeah, man, you know, like, and I was talking all this like negative self-beliefs and the stuff I told you about, like how actually the trauma wasn't the thing that hurt me. It was actually the negative self-beliefs. And I remember the psychologist sitting there like, oh, okay. Like I was like, they didn't, like, I don't know, like, so they were like, this is obviously
someone really doing the work, like.
Right. Yeah. And then, so then they signed off me. They were like, yeah, grand. So then, but the IPS were still saying I was a threat, yeah. So then I done the play, and then I ended up getting to the open prison. And the Director General of the IPS, Karen McCaffrey, she comes to me cell. I land in the open prison, and I'm in my cell, and the door just swings open, and the ACO goes, get down here. And I think I'm getting a search, right? And I'm like, oh, what the fuck? And I jump down, he goes, here, someone at the door for you. And I walk out, it was like the Director General of the IPS, right? And I was like, all right. And she goes, listen, Lynn had me hounded to get you down here, yeah?
Yeah.
She says, she goes, don't fuck it up. I said, sorry, no, but I didn't fuck it up. All I needed was someone to give me a chance, man. And so that's, right. And I took it with two hands. And I've been like, straight away, because you get a phone in the open prison. And I was like, I was ringing all different people, you know, and I was just getting linked in with all these different things and different projects, and I was doing them from the prison. Anyway, and then, yeah, so then that was it. And then I finished off my sentence there, but through all this stuff, so I became like obsessed with like understanding violence. Like I have a really good theoretical understanding of it, right? And then through that, I started reading all this stuff around like feminism and patriarchy and starting to understand about how patriarchal gender norms are impacting upon people. And this is like, I'll just get this out there because, well, you said it about Laura Dowling, right? So I remember I watched her podcast,
Yeah.
and she had
Laura's
said,
a legend.
yeah, right, and but she speaks about in her TED talk. She talks about how like girls are like shamed for their private bits, and like what she's talking about is patriarchal gender norms. It's the same thing. So it's like this is the way patriarchy defines the way women should be, but patriarchy tells men that we can't show emotion. We have to be tough. We have to have this non-relational attitude to sex, you know? So it's like, so this is how we build our sense of masculinity, you know? So I started to understand this stuff, and this is all like black feminism, yeah? So it's like Bell Hooks, Angela Davis, Kimberly Crenshaw, right? This is like, so they're talking about all this stuff, and I was like, it's just making so much sense. So then I ended up getting the Alternative Violence Project. They got on to me and they said, there's this thing on in Minute. It's called AIMTIS. They're like an adult education sort of network. And so they run this thing called the Community Changemakers. And I was like, okay, this is another thing about things that's lining up, yeah? So they say, okay, go, there's this thing in Minute. So I went to Minute to this. I applied for it, got it, went. And as part of that, you had to develop a project. And so at this time, I had applied to Sheila Connolly, the Cork Alliance. She was like, oh, you're getting out soon. What's the plan? And I said, well, I don't really have a plan. And she was like, why don't you come to Cork and do a master's? I was just like, all right. And she just made it happen, man. But then through that, she got me in touch with this lecturer in UCC called Marina Bell, right? And Marina starts telling me, I start telling her about the feminist stuff, yeah? She's like, did you ever see the feminists on Cell Block Y? And I said, no. And she's like, look at this documentary, right? So what's this? And this is all about anti-patriarchal workshop developed in a prison, right? So I watched this, and then I was like, I'm going to develop one of them for Ireland. So I make a workshop developed on masculinity for Ireland. I go to the AIMTIS thing, and then so I bring this workshop, and they're like, great. And then so I'm like, right, I need to build this. So I found this Instagram page called Prison Feminism, and I seen they do sort of workshops. So I get in touch with them, and then straight away they message me back, yeah? And they're like, yeah, love what you're doing. Let's set up a Zoom. Right? So then the weekend I got out. So I got out on the 3rd. So then that Friday had a Zoom with, they're called the Success Stories program. And then they're like, right, we love what you're doing. But they're like, we have this program called the Success Stories program that looks at like love. It looks at negative self-beliefs, but also looks at patriarchy. It looks at the way men sexually objectify women and how that also links into like rape culture, you know, and how all these things, the patriarchal gender norms affect men and women, you know. And just a side note, but just so there's all this stuff around men's mental health online, you know, and it's like, oh, men just need to talk. And it's like, this is what I'm talking about. So like where everyone talks about the effects of patriarchy without calling it out. So it's like the reason why men don't talk is because patriarchal gender norms. So when I suppress all my emotions, and I'm told when I'm a child and I start crying, it's like, boys don't cry. And if you cry, it's like, I'll give you something to cry for. So we brutalize boys into suppressing their emotions. So as men, we learn that part of ourselves is wrong. There's something wrong with it. So we have to shut it down, right? But then that feeds into like, so it's like, I have all these feelings that I can't express. So I can't love anyone. I can't accept feelings of love because they're like weak and feminine. But then that also leads into violence towards other men. So it's like when we're talking about, oh, men just need to talk. Well, it's like, no, men need to talk, yeah, but patriarchy needs to be called out. So like patriarchy is causing men to have male rage and attack other men, right? It's like we have to express dominance over each other, over men, over women. It's all about, we have to be able to dominate.
Power.
Power. We have to be able to dominate. So this is leading men to kill other men and hurt other men, but it's also leading men to hurt women. Do you know?
Which is a huge problem. Like it's such a grown problem. I'm hearing about it everywhere.
100%.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, so we have people over here that are fighting violence against women. And then we have people over here that are like, men just need to talk. Men need to stop killing themselves. Then we have people over here that are like, men need to stop killing each other. But nobody's like, there's this thing over all of us. It's like the patriarchal gender norms that are impacting all of them. You know? So this is what we look at in the success story. So I got onto them and they were like, why don't you take success stories to Ireland? And I was like, okay. Let's do that. So now we're in the middle of developing that, and then the plan is to bring it to Ireland and run this for men on post-release supervision for domestic and sexual offences. And that's like controversial for me, because in prison, like a normal prisoner, like an ordinary decent criminal, you know, is supposed to hate sex offenders. I'm supposed to attack them if I see them, you know. But I believe that we have to understand things if we want to prevent them. This is what I'm talking about, even with the prison. Prevention is where we go.
It's where it's at. It's so weird, because I was doing loads of talks in the prisons, and I done a talk in Arbor Hill. And people are like, what are you going to Arbor Hill for? I was naive. The fuck, I didn't even actually know all the sex offenders went to Arbor Hill. But like for me, it's like there's things underpinning all offences, and we have to look at all offences. Like there's challenges underpinning everything that people do. So I try to have a different kind of perspective on that, but it's mad. Can I ask you as well, Bob, what is masculinity to you?
Okay. Like masculinity is sort of a subjective concept, I would say, in terms of like you can. So this is the thing, right? So when I run these workshops, right, men usually go, when I talk about feminism, right? Feminism for most men is seen as a threat to masculinity. They go, oh, they're trying to like feminize us. They're trying to turn us into women. And I'm like, no, masculinity isn't the problem. It's how we define it, right? So it's like so what we often do is we define our masculinity by our willingness to use violence. Right? An example of this would be, if anyone hurts my family, I'm gonna do whatever, right? And the thing is that, so then we are like, I'm a man because I'm gonna protect my people. Yeah. So what I say, I've had people saying this to me, so you saying I can't protect my family? And I'm like, no, that's not the point, right? So it's like, you can protect your family, but it's like, right, so if someone hurts my family, I can be willing to go and do something about it.
Yeah.
But that's not what makes me a man. So my masculinity isn't defined by my willingness to use violence, even if I have a willingness to use violence.
Yeah.
Because if someone else isn't willing to do that, they're not less of a man. You know? And I think language is a big thing here, because the way we use language, so like, for example, when we talk about things as being weak, it's like, oh, he's a pussy, oh, he's a bitch. It's like we are always equating feminine with weakness.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's vulnerability.
Like, we're constantly putting down the opposite sex as if they're less than us. And it's these like really subtle ways of dominating and asserting that we are the powerful ones, you know? When I would say that women that can express themselves and that can speak and that can live in integrity, you know, in integrated self of really who they are, that's a bigger strength. You being willing to punch someone in the face, man, that's not strength.
It's usually always cloaked in anger. Like it's cloaked in fear. Anger's always cloaked in fear. It's always cloaked in that negative emotion. Like I remember hearing that, like if you get like a boxer, a world champion boxer walking around, they're not walking around angry because there's no fear in that, you know, that way. It's like people that are going around, there's a sadness, there's a fear, there's other emotions that are driving that anger. That's something that I always think about.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would agree. And like for me, I know this is sort of like a topic switch, but I just want to like stick on the topic of language, because I think that, like, so for example, just going back to the way we speak about women, it was like, so like, so the word fuck, it's like we go, oh, would you fuck her, right? And it's like, what does that word really mean for us in our everyday language? So if I go, oh, fuck him up, right?
Yeah.
Violence. Do you get me? Fuck him. That's like a prelude to violence. It's like if I say, Brian, fuck you. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to put my finger up. It was like just, I was just doing the action, you know? So it's like, that's like the start of the violent interaction. Yeah. But then at the same time we go, oh, I'd fuck her.
Yeah.
So it's like the word we're using for intimacy, and this comes back to like this disconnection, because we're so afraid of vulnerability and we're afraid of actual genuine connection, because if we've been taught that it's wrong since we're kids, we can't cry, we can't be soft, because all that stuff is feminine and weak and it's wrong. You know? So we supplement this with languages of violence that keeps us disconnected and separate from us. And then we wonder why so many men are in the pub all weekends, you know? And they can't connect to their kids and their family, and they feel this disconnection, and it feels empty and they don't know what to do about it. And
Yeah.
these are the sort of things we explore in the success stories.
It sounds incredible, and it's that disconnected with yourself. Once you're disconnected with yourself emotionally, you cannot connect properly with other people. But the biggest power I seen in you, Bob, and it was at an event in Indeed several weeks ago. But I think it's why I want to ask you the question about masculinity as well, is your vulnerability. I've never seen someone, and I'm always, I don't know whether I should be, when I see someone that would have, like, having that male ego, a big male ego at one time in their past as part of an identity, when I see them being so vulnerable and moving so many people emotionally, that's a moment that will stay with me, where you were just so vulnerable in that room. You just moved hearts so much. It was just so powerful. And I think that's what really captures, like, vulnerability is courage. And I think it's really masculine, if you want to do that word, to be vulnerable, to show your emotions. And it's not to be crying all the time, but it's to live your authentic self and feel your feelings and show your feelings when they're needed. Show that vulnerability. That's true courage.
100%. And I thank you for the kind words. But I also think that, so when I'm really trying to model this for my son, you know, because I want him to see this. And it's like, so what you're saying is like, what is so wrong about just saying you hurt me feelings?
Yeah.
You know, it's like men would rather punch the head off each other and go home with a black eye rather than just say, make that hurt.
Yeah.
You know, and I try to do this with my son. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. Like, I'm not, you know, because we all, the patriarchy is like, it's this overburden sort of thing that's around us all the time, you know. So, of course, we feed into it sometimes. But when I'm with my son, I'm like, if he says something, I'm like, oh, that hurt, man. You know, I try to just let him see that, like, because I know he won't say this, he always slags me, but I know he thinks I'm strong, you know.
Yeah.
And he told me one time, he goes, "You're the strongest person that I know," and I was like, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
But I also want him to see that strong isn't all that, you know. It's like, strong is also being able to sit down with him, and be able to say, one, if he hurts my feelings; two, I'm sorry, I don't get it all right. And sometimes I do things like, for example, we're always like mess fighting, you know, and we were messing.
How old is he?
He's 10.
Deadly.
Right, and we're messing, and he just goes, oh, and I could see it hurt him, you know, but he's like doing this patriarchy stuff, right? And he's like, no, I'm grand. And I'm like, it's okay, like, and I was like, I'm genuinely sorry. I never meant to hurt you, you know? And I try to just, like, really be that, just model that stuff, you know, that he can, like, just, take that forward, you know? But just on the patriarch, on the masculinity stuff, I have a yoke here, if I can read it to you, yeah?
Yeah, please.
Because it's, now we can just, I know what, like, probably time was.
We're good.
Because, it's just, this is, it's around what like how we define masculinity, right? Right. So when we think of the stereotypical masculine guy, would you agree that this would be a description of him, right? So he always manages to get his own way, even when that means hurting others or breaking the rules. He's someone who doesn't show emotion but manages to attract sexual partners with his charm, but then disregards them at a whim when it suits him because he is a player. So, do you want me to say what I think about this? Or do you
but please. And it's interesting, because when you're talking about that, I'm thinking of all these characters that are revered on the telly, you know what I mean? Characters Charlie Sheen's played, or all these, like, Wolf of Wall Street even. Do you know these kind of characters that are revered? That's what came to mind for me. It's weird.
But so I think that what's important for me in this is that, so he always manages to get his own way, even if that means hurting others. I think that's, like, even on a corporate sense. Yeah. So it's like, it gets shit done.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, we build people up. It's like, oh, he's the man. Yeah. He gets shit done. He has money. He has all these, all these different partners all the time, right? So are we agreed that is like, that's a stereotypical masculinity?
100%, yeah.
Right? So now I'm going to read you the characteristics of a sociopath, right? Manipulative, lacking empathy, disregard for social norms and the rights of others, superficial charm, emotional detachment, and a tendency to exploit or harm others without remorse. So what we project in the world as ideal, toxic masculinity, right, is a form of sociopathy. We have socially constructed sociopathy. And you see this all the time on social media with these quotes. It's like, only 4% of people are sociopathic, but 99% of women believe they've been with a sociopath. Well, that's not because women are overreacting. That's because we are promoting sociopathic tendencies and we're calling it masculinity.
Yeah. It's mad, and it's mad how these traits are revered. It's like you're a guy. I think films have an awful lot to answer for as well. Like, they have a lot of power. Even when you think of politics and all, and voting and stuff like that. Like, certain political institutions in the United States won't let certain films be made because they can have that much of a sway. So it's like, I just think we really just need to question this stuff and really get to the depths of it. And it's conversations like this, Bob, that are just so powerful.
This comes back to the prison thing, because prison is a form of domination. So prison is a patriarchal institution. And this is why, so there's all this stuff, it's called carceral feminism, and it's around to go back to violence against women. It's this idea that women can achieve equality through incarcerating men for their bad behaviour, their patriarchal behaviour, right? I agree that women need to find a way, and we as a society, like, this is what I'm trying to do, right? Is like try to raise awareness, because I don't want women to be hurt, but I don't want men to be hurt either.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say patriarchy is hurting all of us, man. We need to stop it, yeah? But the thing is that women, this the idea in feminism that we can incarcerate our way to a more equal world. But when prison is understood to be a carceral, a patriarchal institution, it's like women are seeking equality through an institution that holds up the structure that oppresses them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's only reinforcing patriarchy.
Yeah.
It's domination. What we need is true feminist ideals of equality and seeing people for who they are, and actually a socialist revolution. That's what we need. We need a revolution, because it can't keep on going the way it is. People are struggling to eat, and then we're sending people to prison for their poverty, for their trauma, and all it's doing is reinforcing the structures that are destroying us all
in the first place.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's Bob, this has been an absolute. I can't believe 90 minutes went by so quick. I looked at the clock and what the hell? Is there anything? There's just so much in there. Is there anything you want to finish on before we wrap it up?
I would just come back to what I said earlier about any of the hurt that I've caused, and I mean this from a really genuine place. Any of the hurt that I've caused, I am genuinely sorry. Right? I've done it, and I'm not making excuses. Like I said, there's always an element of personal responsibility, and I'm not saying that what was going on in my life is an excuse, because it's not, right? I take responsibility, and if there's anyone that I hurt that needs something from me in order to heal, whatever that may be, whether it's a chat, whether they need me to do something, or they need me to come out and say something that I never said, something that I done to hurt them, and they feel like that they want that validation, say it. And it's done, you know. Anyone that hurt me, it's like 100% forgiven. And I just, it's all love here. And I wanna do what I can to try bring some healing and some peace to the world, man. That's it.
What a way to finish, Bob. And the journey of where you were to what you're saying there now it's so powerful, man. Thanks it's been a privilege spending this 90 minutes and having the chats with you. You've educated me today, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
This episode is sponsored by the Cullen Foundation, a non-profit organisation nurturing youth well-being in Ireland. This isn't just a sponsorship, however. I'm currently collaborating with the Cullen Foundation on a very exciting project with the aim of helping young people feel seen, heard and empowered. We're both proud and excited to partner with a sponsor that's changing lives where it matters most. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you enjoy this content, I've created a range of online courses around mindset, mastering your self-talk, unlocking the secrets of addiction recovery and morning routines, and many, many more. If you're interested, simply click on the link in the show notes and use the word resilience to get free access to all of that content.